goes out in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Several films are going to come out. I just want to get a few opinions if we're excited for them. Number 1, I'm going to go Kaylee. Are you excited for the new Jack Reacher movie?
She says
Okay.
Yeah,
She shakes her head and
I realise that shaking my head is not good. Okay, so gosh.
I'm big into the Jack Reacher novels. I've got
Yeah.
them all in hardback mostly because
Yeah.
I just get them as
And
soon as
we
they come
met
out.
him,
I've got
didn't
a few,
we?
Yeah, I've got a few signed copies as well.
Yeah.
So I was quite a Lee Child fan.
Yeah.
And then I got you into it, didn't I, Kaylee?
Yeah.
So you started working your way through
I
them.
started reading the books, and obviously because I work in casting, when I read a book, I am very much picturing actors I think would suit that character and how the Jack Reacher character is described, and I've never pictured Tom Cruise.
Yeah, this
obviously.
is not new news. This is Tom Cruise has been cast as a 6'5" burly, scary soldier man.
Ex-army.
Well,
Ex-army police
that's what I
agent.
think when I think Tom Cruise.
Yes.
I think it's
clearly.
not so much that is the height thing is obviously a big thing, and the build of the character.
It's a big part of Reacher's character.
It's a
though.
big part of who the character is, but it also, rather than the film be a story about Jack Reacher, which is a really cool character, it's now just become a Tom Cruise action.
Yeah, it's just
Then
another Tom
Tom
Cruise.
Cruise film.
There's nothing wrong with Tom Cruise action films,
No,
but
I
that's
don't
all
think
this
so.
is
But
now.
I feel it's a shame for the brilliant books that Lee Child has actually written that
it's a missed opportunity, right?
Yeah. So that's why I'm not really looking forward to it.
I think they'd be
don't
better
really want to watch it. I kind of just want to forget that it's.
Yeah, I think they'd be better off as a kind of TV series or a Netflix series
think-
of Jack, because basically
Yeah.
the books are he's just a drifter. He
Yeah.
just travels around America, running into trouble and solving people's problems.
Yeah.
It would
And that-
essentially perfectly
Yeah,
lend
he's a
itself to
one-man
TV
A team.
series.
Basically,
Yeah.
he's a one-man A team, and that
I
would work
think
really
I would
well
prefer,
as a
if
Netflix
it was
show.
like a Netflix
It's
TV
funny,
series.
I think there are certain characters that would work much better as shows than they would as films.
Yeah.
Like Black Widow. I always think that she would make a much better kind of
That would-
sequential.
yeah.
That could work.
Or Catwoman as well. If you had almost like a procedural,
Yeah.
a bit like Mission Impossible,
Yeah.
where every week they've got a kind of a new, kind of
Yeah.
scam
Impossible
or,
mission.
or thing to do.
Even
rather
more
than
impossible
that.
than the last.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think the one thing that I put as soon as the Jack Reacher film was announced and it was just said that the film was called Jack Reacher, I kind of thought that was a problem from the get-go, because how many books are there? There's so many books. So to call your film Jack Reacher and not the first one
Title
was
of the book.
the title of the book.
You're going to end up with like Jack Reacher 29.
Yeah, exactly, and it doesn't make any sense.
Well, the weird choice they've made with this one is they've actually never go back.
Yeah.
And in the books, at one point, I won't do any spoilers, but at one point he has to call up some old military contacts. He ends up talking to this woman in the books, and he has a long conversation with her, and she helps him out. And then they kind of have a over the phone relationship, and he's like, "Well, I'd really like to meet," and she says, "Yeah, why not?" And so he said, "Well, I'm going to go there then." And then for the next 3 books, I think it is, he's traveling to her, getting into trouble along the way, trying to get to her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then in Never Go Back, he arrives and meets her, and that's the film they've gone for. So they've thrown you in with this scenario that you're not familiar with, whereas in the books it was a
Set
build up.
anything
You're like,
yeah.
I want him to go meet this woman that they could be the best of friends or whatever. And yeah, now
And
we're throwing
again,
the deep end.
it's like similar to the decisions that DC are making. While you could just take the time to go through and have the big payoff being him being the film that they've chosen, but they've decided to just fast forward it, and it doesn't make any sense.
It's just an odd choice to pick that book out of all of them. There's
Yeah.
like 15 books or
Just
something.
trying to pack too much plot into one film.
Yeah, and I mean, you could just take your time. I mean, take your time. One, you'd make more films and therefore make more money, and then build up an audience, and then the big payoff being something like this.
Yeah, I just want to know what the choice, why that book was chosen. And so
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
sure.
yeah, I'm with you on that. So, yeah, I'm not excited about Jack Reacher, to answer your original question.
We have Doctor Strange obviously coming out.
Yep.
What else we got? We've got Keeping Up with the Joneses, and we even know what that is if I say that out loud. We'll skip ones we don't want to talk about. I'll just skip.
Yeah.
Queen of Katwe. That's got in.
That
yep,
actually looks quite.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
good.
getting some
Yeah,
bit of buzz.
the
isn't
trailer
it?
looks great. I'm up for that.
Daniel Blake. I think that's going to
Yeah,
be
That
quite good
looks
as well.
really good.
The trailer just makes you kind of want to cry a bit.
And I saw who was it? One of my friends saw an early preview of it. I think
Yeah.
she said it was amazing.
Yeah. If you had,
Um,
yeah. If you had
And
great
yeah, from the
things.
trailer, it looks excellent. Very good
Yeah.
actors.
It does.
In Pursuit of Silence also coming out, which I've seen.
Yeah.
It's a documentary about the importance of silence, or how noise pollution hurts us physically, our bodies, and it's very interesting side of science and medical health that I was not aware of at all. And it's kind of
That's funny. A friend of mine used to be a noise pollution analyst.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's really stuck with me. The film, it's really stuck with me. The World Health Organization ranked noise pollution just below air pollution.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, I didn't realize it was that big a problem, but it does make sense. You kind of, because we're quite visual creatures, you don't realize that we're very influenced by sound
Yeah.
and how it can physically affect our bodies. They've shown higher stress levels in London. We're in London here, nice noisy London, but they've done studies that have shown that people going out into the middle of nowhere, into the woods and whatever, and just meditating does actually increase your immunity to certain things and helps cancer fighting cells develop as well in your body as well. So sound really is a big thing. But yeah, it's really, it wasn't a great documentary, to be honest, but it's really stuck with me. It's really I have meditated a few times since seeing that documentary when Kelly's not about, because I don't want her to watch me, but it feels silly. But yeah, no, it has sort of stuck in my head. It will go in my
Actually, it's funny you should say we're a visual species, and so we don't
on the podcast.
Yeah.
and no, it's and we don't tend to pay attention to sounds quite so much.
Yeah.
Because sounds. This is the Halloween episode, so we're going to be still talking about horror films later on. Sound design, I think, is a really, really important thing for that kind of sort of elevating that threat. I mean, the classic one is, to go back to Alien, or in fact Aliens, the noise of the motion tracker that they've got, where it suddenly goes boop, 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 and it's the idea that there was a bit of drama between the characters or whatever, and then suddenly you hear this noise and you know that you're now no longer safe, or the characters are no longer safe. You don't know exactly why, you can't see the alien, you don't know where it is, but you know you're now not anywhere near as safe as you were a few seconds before. So that can be a really powerful...
Yeah. Well, music can bring on an emotional response just like that. And you kind of have
exactly
to see,
what I was gonna say.
Yeah. You have to see. I do recommend In Pursuit of Silence because it just explains it in a way that I can't hear. It's very interesting, and you will think about sound a lot differently. I mean, I think about sound anyway because I am a sound designer.
You should think about
So,
sound.
Definitely think about sound.
But it's even made me think about it in a new and interesting way. And the sound design of the film is so blatantly trying to get an emotional response out of you, like not even subtle, that you notice it immediately. Like when they're talking about the dangers of sound, everything's a bit more fast paced and there's more background noise. And when there's a doctor saying meditation is good, it's just really
Everything's
dead
really
silent
calm.
behind. It's sort of peaceful. They really do.
I have actually been in, I think it was in Warwick University. They had an anechoic chamber, which is basically it's a kind of cube made out of at least a metre thick loft insulation, it looks like. But basically it deadens sound completely.
Right,
and you go inside there and it's really, really weird to suddenly have no sound around. And also the sound, any sounds that you make don't reflect off the walls in the same way. They just kind of get absorbed and disappear. So to experience silence is really, really peculiar. And they have to have a rule that no one is allowed in there if there's only one person in the room, because if you get stuck in there and you shout to get out, no one can hear you. So
there's a horror movie waiting to happen.
Exactly. So you could be like stuck inside this, soundproof chamber for a whole night until somebody comes in the next day.
Wow.
Okay.
That's a horror film.
Yeah.
Should happen.
Well, horror. It's Halloween, as we've said several times.
Yep.
Everyone's scared.
Ooh, I'm terrified.
What's coming out for Halloween is the question. So what have we got? We've got Ouija or Ouija by Ouija.
Ouija?
We had this discussion earlier,
Yeah,
didn't we?
I'm still pretty sure it's supposed to be Ouija.
It has an A in
Ouija.
it, so I'm gonna say
Okay.
Ouija.
I mean, yeah.
'Cause you always say Ouija board, don't you?
Ouija
Yeah, but I
boards.
think that's
Yeah.
I think it's been said wrong for
I
a
think
long
everyone's-
time.
Everybody's
No,
just
but
saying
you know,
Ouija.
like everyone
It's
used
like
to
the
say Ouija
Feige-
board for the
Feige
longest time.
thing.
It's Feige
It's
all
Feige,
over again.
Feige.
Feige.
That's not actually on the podcast. We didn't actually record that. By the way.
Kaylee has
So
a
that's
huge
a
problem.
That's a
favorite
conversation-
joke of
that's
us
a
trying to find
conversation we
out
had
the
outside.
name of Kevin Feige.
I think it
Yes.
probably should be pronounced "we ya" because,
ya.
because it is "we"
ya.
meaning
Yeah.
French for yes, and then "ya"
Yeah.
meaning German for yes. That's what the original.
Yeah,
Well,
the
it's
game
like-
from. Did you? Was this on QI? I
think it
feel like
was,
this was
yeah,
on
yeah.
QI because that's the only reason I know things.
So it's called
Stephen
Yes Yes.
Fry says
Yeah.
Ouija.
The Yes Yes game.
So
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Ah, makes sense.
Oh.
It's Ouija: Origin of Evil, the prequel to the first Ouija film, which I didn't see. Did
Nope.
anyone see it?
I didn't even know that was the first one. Good to
No,
know.
it's the Ouija boards are
Stupid.
just a pet peeve of mine in horror films. Yeah, they are stupid.
Yeah.
As they're the dumbest kind of prop, and I immediately as that film, the Ouija first one came out, I was like, nope, I don't want to watch a film
Well,
about
just
this.
Yeah.
the whole concept with the Ouija board is just like it's people touching it and then it moves around on its own. But
Yeah.
like every time I see that happen in a film, all I think is, well, clearly one of them's moving it, aren't they? Like there's no kind of suspense or anything in it. I'm just like I cannot believe that not one of them is moving it. It just makes no sense.
It's very subconscious though, because I saw them do an experiment once where they had some people on the Ouija board asking questions and whatever, and then they all claimed none of them were moving it. They claimed, and they all seemed convinced. So what they did is they blindfolded them all to do it again, but what they didn't tell them is they turned the Ouija board upside down.
Yeah.
Oh, the letters board, you mean?
Yeah, the letters
Yeah.
board. Yeah, and but they still moved it as if they were moving it to the correct place, as if the board
to
was
the
the right
old-
way up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were moving it to where they thought the letters were, not where presumably a spirit looking at the board could
Yeah.
see where the letters and
Which-
stuff
Right.
were.
Well,
Yeah,
did
yeah,
they,
yeah.
did they
Doesn't-
blindfold the ghost as well, though?
Well, no.
Well,
With a ghost blindfold.
But yeah, no, it's.
Well, they surely must have lots of sheets around.
Yeah, that's not really a ghost blindfold, is
I
it?
don't
That's
think
just a ghost.
yeah, if you're getting your idea of ghosts from Scooby Doo, there, man, I think a little bit. But yeah, no, it's Ouija boards just don't. They just seem silly
Yeah.
Yeah.
to me. Probably not going to watch this. It's a good advertisement for the film, isn't
I
it?
know.
No, I
Yeah,
thought the
skip
trailer
this
looked
one.
really scary though, because I watched the trailer on YouTube. And
They
I thought
have
not
done
that
the thing of
hard.
having kind of a young girl
Yes.
doing quite creepy things, which usually gets people. I mean, and
Yeah.
it does work on me as well. Like
Yeah.
young children doing really creepy things is.
Yeah, I think it's that.
quite
and
scary.
it's
So
the-
in that though, the Ouija board is very much a gimmick.
Yeah.
If you took out the Ouija board and just said this house was haunted and this girl
Yeah,
was
it doesn't
being
really need
possessed,
a
Yeah.
Ouija
it
board.
would be exactly the same film.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
there's nothing special about Ouija boards. The makers of them have come out and said it was just,
It was
Yeah.
a game.
game we made. It's not.
Yeah.
Don't take it so seriously. But they've become
Yeah.
like really entrenched in
in
this
horror.
sort of.
Also, the little
mythos.
girl's name in this is Doris.
There's
So-
something wrong with
Past.
Doris.
I know, but you know when you just kind of like, I cannot hear that name in a serious situation and be like, oh, I'm really scared. I will giggle
really scared
every
of
time they
Doris.
say Doris. It's like when you get the Piccadilly line and you have to go to Cockfosters. I cannot say that without laughing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
not-
maybe
I'm
this
not
will
doing-
help you. Here's another QI fact. Doris was the name of Herod's wife from the Bible.
Good to know. I mean, that's
okay.
an excellent
There
Herod
we
and
go.
Doris.
There we go.
Doris Herod. Kill those babies.
How bizarre.
Great stuff.
Fact of the day. Thank you, Matt.
Cool.
Evil fact of the day.
Evil.
Because it's Halloween.
Yeah.
So no one's tempted to see that then for
No,
Halloween.
not in
one's
the
recommended
slightest, no.
Halloween. How about Attack of the Lederhosen Zombies?
Yes, very much so.
I mean,
Terrible
yeah,
trailer.
We saw the trailer again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But fantastically ridiculous title though. That's enough to kind
Yeah.
of draw you in sometimes.
Zombies in Lederhosen, I think,
I
is
think-
what I need in my life. I think my life is not yet complete because of the lack of zombies in Lederhosen.
I mean, we were talking about we listed some horror films in the last week's episode 3.
So confused. Yeah.
But yeah, we were intrigued by some terrible titles. Was it like witches and zombies versus
Versus
vampires?
zombies
And
from- yeah.
Yeah.
horror films with terrible titles make me go, I kind of want to see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
that's, the thing is though, the trailer. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember seeing any zombie in Lederhosen at all.
No,
No.
that's
No.
true.
What
No,
it
they're
was
really-
was
I was quite
zombies
upset.
at a ski resort.
They were at a
Yeah.
ski resort. Actually,
The
I think
Lederhosen
the
was
one at the
implied.
end- I think the one at the end was in a Lederhosen.
You reckon?
I think so.
If there's only one, that's just zombie.
Don't-
Lederhosen zombie. It's not
Yeah.
Lederhosen
Yeah.
zombies, is it?
You assume there's going to be more.
Gonna be upset.
Because
thing is-
otherwise it's a misleading title.
Yeah.
Well, the title makes you think it's going to be a comedy kind of parody type sort
Yeah.
of film, and it
Yeah,
doesn't look like it
It's
is.
kind of almost though. It's like on the cusp of being a parody. They've just not quite
Maybe they
gone
just
full.
not put any jokes in the trailer though. That could be the issue.
Yeah, maybe.
Also out this Halloween. If anyone's not tempted by the Attack of the Lady Hasn't Zombies, you could be tempted by Train to Busan.
That actually does look really good.
Yeah,
That's
that's
look
look
good.
quite
And I've
excited.
heard nothing but good
I've
things
seen
about
it.
it.
I saw it
And
about
you've
a
seen
month ago for review, and I loved it. It's
Yep.
a brilliant film.
It does.
There's
look
something to
good.
be said for innovation, but there's also something to be said for knowing the rules of your genre and just fine tuning them and polishing them. And this is
Especially
that.
with horror, like
Yeah.
there is the rules. You kind of need to. Stick
There
to
is
the rules
nothing-
unless you do something completely.
Yeah, there's nothing surprising, particularly or new about this film, but it does everything so perfectly that it's just. I just thought it was a fantastic film.
Yeah.
So it's a zombie film well done rather than an innovative
Yeah,
zombie film.
yeah. And the
Yeah.
zombies in this are very much a horde. There's no individual like, oh no, Jeff's a zombie. No, they're just a horde of 100 zombies coming at you. Like, holy shit, you just got to run out of the way because 100 of anything coming at you is probably going to kill you.
Yeah.
It's like-
If there was a stampede of 100 people, they could.
yeah.
Stampede of 100 sloths.
So
And these zombies are they're the zombies. They're the
Terrifying.
fast, aggressive sort of 28 Days style.
Yeah, which are
zombie.
actually
Yeah.
scary
Who
rather
just-
than the slow ones.
Yeah,
that
they're
won't
just
catch you.
people who want to kill you, and that's all they want.
That's pretty
They don't want to
terrifying.
eat you or anything. They just want to kill you for
So
some reason.
Do you want to
Yeah.
describe what the film is, like the synopsis?
Well,
of it?
it did look less crowded than Japanese trains.
Yes,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Korean. It's set in Korea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a
So
Korean
they
film
do-
with
they do
subtitles.
better with their public
so that might
transport. Yeah.
immediately turn you off.
but it shouldn't.
But it shouldn't, because you'll get some culture, you lousy listener.
Yeah, we've gone to insult people.
So,
Still listen
Go.
to us, please.
Would you like?
so
to
the film
read-
is about. I'm not gonna be able to say anyone's names.
Would you like me to read the synopsis?
No.
Carry on.
Is
You
it
could do
Korean?
All
actually if you
under
can try and
control
say
right
the
now.
Korean names. I'm not going to attempt to say the Korean names. So the main character lives with his daughter. Him and his wife are split up. It's never explained why or anything like that. But his daughter wants to go and see the mother for her birthday. So he agrees, well, right, we'll get the train to Busan where your mother is and we'll see her. Meanwhile, zombie outbreak. And they're on the train just happened by chance. And the zombie outbreak, you see how early on this whole thing, it's not like that big of a shock. Plus, it's a zombie film. They're not stupid enough to be like, oh my god, zombies. They're just like, suddenly there are zombies everywhere. So that's the one smart thing about a zombie film can do, I think. A zombie film with a very slow build of the zombies, like, no,
Yeah,
they're zombies.
you know there's going to be zombies.
Come on.
Yeah.
I did
but
quite
yeah.
like the shot of certainly in the trailer, the first zombie that you see. It's just as the train's pulling out,
Yeah.
you see the guard kind of get taken down by.
Oh, yeah,
someone.
That's
Yeah.
pretty.
Yeah.
I mean, and it could be just
That's not the first zombie you see in the film, but yeah, that's the first
Yeah,
in
in the
the
trailer
trailer.
it
That
is.
was the
Yeah.
first one you see. But yeah, they happen by happenstance get on the train, traveling away from the zombie apocalypse behind them just by dumb luck. But yeah, someone's on the train, it's infected, and it spreads, and they're kind of trapped on this train trying to find a station that's safe to stop at.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant mix of horror and humour and action. There's some fantastic action set pieces in this. Between the three sort of main male leads having this epic fight to try and get down the train to everybody else, to their loved ones, and it's really quite something. It's just fun. It's just pure fun, and it's also quite emotional.
Yeah.
So it's sort of got that sort of underlying. Shaun of the Dead has got a lot of emotionality to it. It's primarily a comedy, but you can still get that emotional level to it, and it just works. And it's very cliche at the end of the day. You could probably none of you have seen the film, but you could probably list off the cast of characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no surprises, but yeah, it just does what it does so very well, and I
Cool.
thoroughly recommend it for this Halloween season.
And it's when's it coming out?
It is October 28th.
Great.
So that's Friday of first day of Comic-Con.
Cool.
That's my recommendation for Halloween. I'm eating my
Oh, God.
Smarties thing. You can't stop me. My Smarties are everywhere.
Oh no! Da, da, da.
Smarties.
Rawr.
I can do my baby Wookiee impression.
Yeah, do that.
That was adorable.
That was cute.
So it's the horror season.
Yeah.
We've had this brief conversation before. Fair to say, not a lot of horror fandom at this table currently.
Do you know, I do like horrors, but my issue with them has always been it takes quite a bit to actually scare me.
Okay.
So a lot of, and I like to be, it sounds really wrong, I do genuinely like to be scared, But so many of the films, I watch it with great hopes and go, yeah, this is going to be really terrifying. And then I watch it and go, oh, I was mildly displeased.
Yeah.
So it's just, if I manage to find the ones that actually genuinely make me really scared or on the edge of my seat, I absolutely love them. But it's very difficult for me to find them. So after a while, I get disillusioned and stop watching them.
I don't know if I can name a horror film that's genuinely scared me. I do have a phobia, and I actively avoid films with that phobia in it, so that's probably why.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've ever seen a horror film that'd been like, that was super scary, it's like left me shaken or whatever.
I've had a few with
You're scared of everything.
I'm not scared of everything. I do scare easily. So I remember me and you going to the cinema to see Drag Me to Hell, which is just a really jumpy scare film.
That's a fun film though.
It's a fun film, but there's so many jump scares, and I just remember the fact that I held onto your arm for so long that by the time we left the cinema, there was just, my hands were just so sweaty. Absolutely, I couldn't.
See, I didn't find that film scary, but I thought it
made
was
you
fun.
jump.
Yeah, it's got jump scares, which aren't that hard to do
Yeah.
at the end of the day. Something loud comes at the screen.
But
Not natural
Yeah.
reaction.
because I scare easily. I sometimes avoid horror films mainly for the fact that I'm like, I don't really want to just constantly be scared, so I'm fine. Or I kind of prefer more thrillers.
Yeah,
and
this is what I
something
was
that makes
going
my
to say.
brain work, because sometimes horrors can get a little bit formulaic, and I'm very much like, okay, there's a monster and he's going to be somewhere and you're going to do something
But I do
stupid,
find it,
like run upstairs.
I find it a little difficult sometimes to know where the line is with what's a horror and what's technically a thriller. That there's a lot of them that are kind of the middle of those two that are very, very scary, but I think they would be technically a thriller.
Yeah.
So a lot of the films that I love that are terrifying probably are thrillers.
It's probably just gory thrillers.
Yeah,
There's
it's
a
not
bit
even gory,
more-
because it's not gory stuff that scares me. It is psychological stuff that scares me.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
the idea
Yeah.
of something
Yeah.
that really scares me.
Well, I'm talking about phobias. I'm really, 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 really scared of clowns. So obviously, I'm having a great time right now. With all the killer clowns and stories.
Oh yeah.
They're not actually killers.
No, but the fact that they keep calling them, don't they? They keep calling them
Yeah.
killer clowns, like scaring pregnant people into labour early and stuff. And there's just nowhere is safe because there's
There are clowns everywhere.
There are clowns everywhere on social media. It's on the TV.
Yeah.
It's on the news. So it's on
They
papers.
keep reporting
they're
about
on
the remake
streets.
of It.
So I'm really scared
He
of clowns.
doesn't look scary though.
I'd see. I feel like we've talked about this before at some point. I actually think he does look really scary. I think he looks scarier than the one in the. It was a TV.
So-
I think it was a
wasn't
TV
it?
series.
Yeah,
Well,
TV
film,
series.
yeah, TV
I think
movies,
this one
whatever.
looks to me scarier, but it's personal choice though, isn't it?
Well,
Yeah.
Kaylee's terrified of clowns. She doesn't think he's scary.
Yeah, that's the thing. So
sign.
there are some, obviously being deathly scared of clowns, and I think the fear came from one, the fact that my mum is scared of clowns, and two, the fact that I watch it like a really young age, and I just
I thought she
remember
was going to
being.
say her man was a clown.
Just to be clear, Kaylee won't even let me own the film It, and I really
No,
like
no,
it.
I won't.
But Kaylee won't let me even own it in the flat just because she's so scared of the clown.
Yeah, because
Pennywise.
yeah. It
I
just
don't know, I'm ignorant on that.
no, it creeps me. It just completely creeps me out. I find it really hard to. I like Tim Curry and I've seen him in so many different films, but I find it hard to separate Tim Curry and Pennywise together. While there's something like Psychoville with Reece Shearsmith, and I kind of can separate the fact that the clown that he plays in that and him, and then I'm not scared of that clown, but I just find it really difficult to do that with Pennywise.
I'm sorry, but Tim Curry as a clown was very, very funny.
He was
That's
It was,
probably one
yeah,
of the few times
genius.
I found a clown funny.
yeah,
I mean,
proper
You
psycho.
weren't supposed to find him that
I
funny.
know. Just one of the thing was when there's one point in that TV special where they're kind of in a library, and the whole idea is the main characters can see this clown,
But nobody else
can. And there's all kind of weird things going on, like balloons.
There's balloons
going
popping and splattering blood everywhere.
and
yeah.
no one
Incidentally, in the
thing is-
book, that is really terrifying, but I know what you mean. The TV
But it's just it's
series
got Tim
not
Curry
so much.
kind of sitting
Prancing
on one of,
around.
yeah, prancing around, and nobody's paying any attention to it at all. And it's really, really hilarious.
It is good.
Now, being scared of clowns, obviously right now with all the clowns out and everything, but when they remade the Poltergeist film, and they put the clown
doll.
poster on
Well, they did it on buses and stuff. Yeah, that freaked you out.
On buses. So I was walking down the street and there would be a bus with a clown and I'd be like, ah! And that was my life. And I just kind of think that I just want to shout out to the marketing people.
Fear of clowns is actually quite common.
It is. So why put it on a bus?
You wouldn't put like a giant picture of a tarantula on the side of a bus.
But then why have them as children's entertainment things anyway? I was listening to something about this the other day. They were basically saying there is, in every culture in the world, there is a version of a clown as a children's entertainment thing.
Yeah.
But statistically, most children are terrified of clowns or clown-like things.
Yeah.
So it's the worst idea in the world to have it. But every single culture seems to have had the same idea of, yay, clowns. And kids are like, no, not the clowns.
Exactly.
They are inherently evil and they're trying to control us.
Maybe so.
It's a conspiracy.
Exactly, yeah, it's kind of like an Illuminati.
It's kind of, I think, probably the uncanny valley kind of thing of a clown, where it's sort of human but not.
Yeah.
And that's that does.
I used to have, when I was a kid, I had a toy, and I think my parents were trying to scare the crap out of me. I had a toy clown, like with a little soft body clown, but it had two faces. So like one side it was happy, and then you turned it around and it was sad.
My God.
It was quite terrifying. I was like, why do I have a two-faced clown?
But there's a thing that a clown's makeup, as in the kind of pattern that they have on their face, is unique to that clown, and they all kind of essentially patent it.
Yeah, they can.
And the way they do that is actually, or the way they used to do it certainly was they used to paint it onto an egg, and so there were museums of all these kind of eggs with all the faces written on it, and apparently it is one of the creepiest things in the world to walk into that and see all these tiny little eggy clown faces,
tiny eggy clowns
staring at you.
I mean, there's
and all of it, of like sometimes decades or longer dead clowns.
Yeah.
There's something that's always scared me, mainly because of my fear of clowns and fear of Jack in the Boxes at the same time. But I know
they're always clowns, aren't they?
Yeah, and nobody's so it's a bit of a weird thing to say, but the film Elf has that
terrifying film Elf.
That terrifying film Elf. No, but it's one of those things where apparently it's a really funny scene, but I've never actually seen it because as soon as I see him like the Jack in the Box and he's just cranking it, I'm hiding
he's making
behind
sure
my
they all
hands.
work. He's going. Oh dear.
And I can't watch it. I listen to people laugh while we watch it, but I mean, this whole podcast is just be about weird things.
Can I just say?
Yeah.
I was just going to point it. As lovely as this therapy session for Katie is, we're sort of getting away.
We are getting away from the point.
Yeah.
I just was going to say about horror films. It's kind of to have a pure horror film. It's quite a difficult concept because you are basically trying to instill one single emotion into your audience for an hour and a half, and it's an emotion that the audience is expecting you to project into them, so it's difficult to kind of sneak it in, as it were. So
what you're saying is what they should do is advertise it as a comedy, and then when people come in, they scare the living bejesus out of them.
I think that's why it works when it's crossed with another genre.
Yeah.
So things like Alien is actually a really good horror film. It was billed as a haunted house in space.
Yeah.
If you watch it, the first half hour nothing happens.
Yeah.
But you can feel the tension kind of building all the way through the film until the point where you get the alien there and it starts to kill people. So it actually works really well because you're not looking at it as a horror film, you're looking at it as a science fiction film.
Yeah.
And I think that's the kind of thing that helps to
I think that is. I think you're right. I think that's generally the films that tend to scare me are the ones that are not necessarily billed as horrors, but end up being quite terrifying.
One of the things I've seen the biggest jump in an audience is in The Dark Knight when the dead guy dressed as Batman hits the window.
Oh, yeah, that really made me jump as well.
Every time I was working at cinema at the time, and every time the audience went, ah! And really big reaction to that because it's totally unexpected.
Yes. Yeah.
It's kind of a thing. It's a bit. Say, remember Alfred Hitchcock said, a bomb exploding, that's a shock, and it happens, and then that's it. It's gone away. But if you have a bomb under a table and a countdown going on, then you can keep the audience ratcheted up. You can keep them in that high intent. For as long as you need to.
You know what? I had this with a few months back. I watched a preview of Insidious 3. And Oh my god, I literally walked into it middle of the afternoon and I was like, I am not that scared by horror movies. I was feeling very confident. And walked in, and that was again one of those films that it's a lot about paranormal stuff, which I am not a big believer of, so it tends to not scare me, but it did manage to build up the tension, and you were waiting for something to happen, but it would do that thing where you wait for it to happen and it doesn't seem to for the longest time, to the point that you kind of go, oh, well, maybe it's not going to happen. And just as you start to relax, it happens.
Yeah.
That is scary. Like, that film really, really did scare me, Insidious 3.
Which one's Insidious?
It sounds like quite a well-named one, if in that case.
Yeah. It was. Well, I spoke to the director the day after. I had to interview the director the day after. And I was like, "You gave me sleep apnea," because he literally did. This film, it just screwed me to hell. He was not sorry, because he's a bastard. No, he's a lovely man, but he was very proud of himself because he'd screwed me royally. But no, Insidious.
Is
Do you want to rephrase that?
What did I say?
He said he screwed me royally. Is that really what you want to put on the
He
podcast?
did not do that. Terrible lies.
Yeah.
Well then.
Yeah.
On
Anyway.
that note.
Insidious is the one with Patrick Wilson and Rose Byrne. And
I've seen the first one.
The little boy.
Yeah, I feel like a bunch of films come out that are very similar. Insidious, Sinister, and there was another one that came out at about the same time.
Yeah, they
that
were
the haunted
quite
house
similar.
films that were very similar, and I keep getting them confused.
Yeah.
I would say that if you ask me, I would say I don't watch horror films generally because I don't like that genre, but I do seek them out every now and then. I do every now and then think, oh, I'd really like horror films. I do own a fair few horror films. Like you're saying, Alien, you kind of forget is a horror film.
Yeah.
It's just a really, really good film. Like the horror genre tends to move out, expand beyond. And I own, we were talking about earlier, Scream.
Yeah.
Well, off the podcast talking about it. And I really like Scream, but I like it as a thriller. I don't think it's a very scary film.
No.
And I don't like slasher films, so I like it as a parody of slasher films.
Would vampire films count as
If they're
kind of?
scary, I guess.
Have you ever watched 30 Days of Night?
Yeah.
That found
would count.
pretty.
Yeah, that counts.
Really did scare me because it's unusual as a vampire film in that a lot of the ones, especially now, are kind of slightly romantic.
Yeah.
Kind of, is a romantic idea of vampires, and it kind of has been. Even Dracula is a bit of a romantic idea of a vampire, in that it's not like flat out.
You see.
Yeah.
I mean,
But at this, like 30 Days of Night is genuinely really quite. They're monsters. So yeah, I like that aspect of it. That they're just not. They're not things that could live in and around human beings and kind of blend in or do anything else.
It's a predator.
Yes.
And quite clearly. It's like to go way back, like we just said, Count Orlok, which was the Nosferatu.
Yeah.
It's quite literally, he's a monster. It's not. He's not in any way a kind of sympathetic.
No.
Anything like that. It looks really, really strange. And he kind of behaves in, he just does see the human beings as a kind of sort of cattle, as it were.
Yeah, which I think is what it's the idea in the first place is supposed to be, not something that can kind of blend in and fall in love with a human. Twilight issues.
But if you look at some of the early horror films, I'm thinking about like the Dracula, Wolfman, the Mummy.
Yeah.
What do people think of those as films?
The old ones.
Yeah. So like Bela Lugosi and.
I mean, there's. Yeah, I kind of think of them. Classics, but I can't think why I would watch one of them now.
Yeah.
No, see, I like them, but I don't find them scary.
Yeah.
I enjoy watching them.
Yeah.
But I don't look at them. I think that's the thing. I don't think of them when you say horror, simply because I don't find them that scary
I
at
don't
all.
think what I would watch if I wanted to be scared. I can't really think of anything. If I really want to be scared, I'm not sure what
Watch
I would watch.
Buried.
What I would do is probably play a video game.
Is that
Buried is Ryan Reynolds, in
yeah.
a box,
Yeah, in a box.
for 2 hours,
For a long
and you
time.
never get outside. I
Pretty
watched that
tense.
in the cinema when it came out, and I'd found it so difficult to sleep afterwards because I was like, I'm gonna wake up in a box. Very, very well done, actually. I do genuinely enjoy that film. It's difficult to carry that, and it mixes well with kind of a lot of it is very tension heavy and very serious, but it's got a little. It's Ryan Reynolds, so it's still got a little bit of humor when he gets put on hold, and you're like, but humor mixed with frustration of kind of you would be like that in that situation if you're in a deadly situation, you need help right now, and they're like, oh, I'll just put you on hold, and you're like, what the?
Yeah.
But that's the thing that kind of makes it more realistic because people are you don't have just one emotion throughout an hour and a half thing. You need to move up
People
and down.
are a mixture.
And have bits of relief and bits of tension mounting and things like that.
Yeah. Well,
actually, of the old film, sorry. Apparently, one to see is the Bride of Frankenstein. That's apparently one of the.
Okay.
That's of all those. That's apparently the best film. I haven't seen it.
And I was going to say, and the one that I haven't seen.
Yeah.
I don't even remember if I've seen that one.
That's basically the second one. So it's kind of the Frankenstein's monster comes back and finds Frankenstein, the scientist, and then basically demands to
because he's lonely.
See, I don't
demands to make a wife, and Frankenstein does, and that's you'll know the hairstyle if nothing else because
yeah,
he's got
the
the
white
classic stripe.
I don't watch those Frankenstein films because I love Frankenstein the book. I really love it. I've read it several times. I think it's really good. There's a adaptation with De Niro that's pretty close to the book, but they're also wildly off base.
Yeah,
with what that book is
the
about.
book itself is basically the first science fiction book. Really, is what it is, and really,
it's amazing.
It is, but it's really sad all the way through. If you kind of look at Mary Shelley's life, she had several miscarriages, and there's one thing in her diary she wrote that she had a dream where her baby that had just been stillborn, she put it by the fire and kind of rubbed it a little bit, and it came back to life.
Oh, so
and there were all these things, and that was about the same time that there was a guy they discovered, an Italian guy called Galvani had discovered that if you kind of put electrodes into people's heads and things like that and electrocute them, they start to move again.
Yeah.
And so there was this whole idea of electricity being somehow connected with being alive and things like that, and there's kind of all mixed together. But yeah, she was quite a tragic life.
Yeah, it's even sadder if you read it from that perspective.
Yeah.
But what I was saying a minute ago is if I want to be scared, I don't think a movie. I tend to will go to a video game. Because I own all the Silent Hill games. I have the Suffering games, which are one of my favourites, and there's a lot of online. There's a whole online culture of gaming for horror. Like if I say Five Nights at Freddy's, then we know what that is. Things like that.
We know and laugh.
They're obviously small and silly and those sorts of little games, and don't really have. Well, the new one has quite a creepy story to it.
Yeah.
But that's just as
Five Nights at Freddy's is basically jump scare.
Yeah, jump scare the game. It is. But I don't like playing it, but I do enjoy watching people play it on YouTube.
Right,
yeah. but yeah, and I'll always go to a video game usually because it's I find it much scarier to be immersed in the world and have sort of an investment, whereas I don't tend to get immersed into horror films.
See, books scare me because the books, I think it's a lot to do with your own imagination.
Yes.
So if they can describe something to a certain degree that kind of gets an image in your head, I will quite happily I scare the crap out of myself because my brain just goes away with itself. I think it's probably helpful for people that are fairly artistic. Yeah. Reading a book tends to go that way.
Terry Pratchett always described imagined horrors are always more scary than actual horrors. It's kind of the darkness being peopled by things in your mind is much more scary than it's a monster sort of thing. It's the thing that you imagine there is much more scary than the thing that is actually there.
I would say the same thing with horror movies and things as well, because if you see the thing that's chasing them, if you see the monster, it's much less scary than if you never quite see it.
It's true.
So like Jeepers Creepers, when I watched that years ago, and it scared me right up until the point of it scared me right up until the point of you seeing the monster, and then I was like, it's ridiculous. And
but that's why the second one wasn't really a horror. It was more of a comedy, is the fact that you could see the monster in broad daylight.
I tend to feel that with those things, as soon as you start to see the monster, it becomes more of an action horror than a straight horror.
Yeah.
In the same way that like Jaws is sort of a horror film.
Yeah, it's technically in that genre.
It's got the tension,
it's a haunted house on a boat essentially because you don't know where this thing is.
Yeah.
And it could easily kill all these people, and you start to care about the characters, and the only clue that you ever get is the noise, or occasionally shots like the barrels appearing, things like that. It's like I was saying before with the Alien motion tracker. I always think that sound design is really, really important for horror films.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah. Because it's so much more indefinite. So if you can see something, you've got a handle on it exactly. But if you can hear something, because you can't quite place where it is, what it is, and things like that. It helps you to imagine this kind of horrible thing. And I know we were talking about music. The Halloween music from the film Halloween is an almost perfect piece of kind of creepy.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I know. Well,
and Jaws as well. You can think of all these.
Yes,
I know Tubular Bells is the one people always think of, but I always think the Halloween music is actually better.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. I think I remember really, really liking the first Saw movie. I mean,
it's not scary though.
They've made quite a lot. It wasn't the fact that it was scary. It was more the fact that it creeped me out quite a lot. And I think it was more the thriller aspect that I reacted a bit more to than the horror aspect, because
it has a good mystery.
It was more of that. It was the fact that like the first one I just thought was such a good film.
It's a very new concept at the time as well. It's like it's a completely different thing than what had been done before. So it is very surprising, and I think you're right. The first one I really enjoyed as well, but the ones afterwards, I was on board with
Saw to blame for the torture porn genre? Because she's the biggest blight on cinema.
There is a lot of them, and there was a lot of directors that
awful.
just like to do that and nothing but that, and I kind of actively avoid that. No, I think because I did film studies in university, so I watched a lot of the old classic films like Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, the Nosferatu, Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, all the sort of German expressionism sort of horror films.
Yeah, it's very
things like that. Where music again is such a big part of it, and shadows and lighting and all of that kind of thing.
That's very
just being
German
really,
expressionism.
Yeah, of just being really
again
creepy.
with Nosferatu, where you see like he's just There's the girl who's kind of asleep, and then you just see the kind of silhouette. He must be standing like that.
This is not a visual.
So that's jazz hands,
right? Essentially, if you haven't seen it, then he is doing jazz hands before he
terrifying jazz hands.
And
evil jazz hands.
It is, and those films are really, really, really great.
Those old films that built the genre,
exactly.
But now do we think that the modern horror, especially American horror, is easily the most cliche genre?
I think what's I've become very, very aware of the fact is that when you have like a trailer for it now, they start filming audience reactions. So to kind of prove that their film is scary, they'll have an audience member sat in the cinema going,
It's not that hard to scare someone, like we've said before. It's not that hard to go boo.
Really easily.
Jump.
Yeah. But have you noticed that like a lot of movie trailers
have audience
constantly now getting audiences just to prove that it's
so are they the test audiences, presumably?
I guess so.
Yeah, you guess so.
I'd rather see those audience being unable to get to sleep that night because of the horror's messed with their heads so much. That would make me think, oh, it's going to be a good horror film. I don't want to see them going,
because it's not really a horror film, it's more a thriller film, but it's a film that's really, really creepy and not that well known, so I just kind of wanted to shout out to it because it's a Pedro Almodovar, God knows, sorry if that's wrong, film.
I just want to shout out to this bloke and butcher his name in the poster.
Pedro Almodovar. It's a film called The Skin I Live In, which I've been trying to get you to watch.
Oh, you have?
It's a film with Antonio Banderas as a plastic surgeon.
I've heard of this, yes.
And it was one of those films that was recommended to me, so I watched it, and I just can't forget it because it is so creepy. And so many horror films, this is really annoying thing that if somebody says to me, oh my gosh, you're never going to guess the twist, it makes me want to watch the film. It does, and it really bugs me, which is why I watched the film Orphan because I remember reading like a total film review and it said you never guess the twist, so I watched the film. And somebody just recommended this and said, oh, the twist is really good, and so I watched it, and it's such a good film, and I can't recommend it enough.
But as a kind of thriller with a twist.
As a bit of a thriller, but I think it does have an element of a bit of blood and gore in it enough, but more a thriller than a horror. But I just got shouted out.
There's often seems like a bit of blood and gore and a couple of jump scares is enough to make a horror film.
I was just about to say, what do we think it is that makes a film a horror film rather than a thriller or
where's the line?
Yeah.
There's not that many things that are just horror. Because some things are horror, thriller or horror, comedy or horror, something.
There's a
things that
horror.
Most of it is the slasher horror films, isn't it, really? Isn't it?
Well, does the film have to be principally scary to be a horror?
Yeah, I guess so.
Like you wouldn't call Shaun of the Dead has some very good horror moments in it.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't call it a horror because it's primarily funny.
Well, it's a
Yeah.
zombie
It's
rom-com,
mostly
isn't it?
funny. A zombie
I love
rom-com.
calling it a
Zombie
zombie
rom-com.
rom-com.
Whereas Alien, like you're saying, yes, it's a sci-fi film, but it is principally scary.
Yeah.
That is the main theme of the film, is that these people are in danger.
Are trapped and they can't escape this.
According to
Um,
Wikipedia, it's the horror
The knower
genre.
of all things.
Horror is a film genre seeking to elicit a negative emotional reaction from viewers by playing on the audience's primal fears.
That was helpful.
There we are. Targeted
It's-
to what we're
it's-
scared of.
It's a genre trying to elicit a negative reaction. So,
Trying
like,
to-
if you hate the
Twilight.
film,
Yeah.
it's a horror film.
I think it's more trying to scare you based on what your fears are.
Right,
That's
yeah,
what a
yeah.
horror film is.
But yeah, no, that's a good question, man. I don't really know the answer.
But if you say that, I mean, one of the ideas of like, the adult fear is supposedly losing a child.
Yeah.
So is a film where a child is in danger of being killed, is that a horror film?
They have done horror films like that though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but does that make it a horror film?
I mean, it's
It
possibly.
depends if it's primarily about that, I guess.
I was gonna say, there's a film that was that Julianne Moore won the Oscar for. That's called Still Alice, which is just just a film about somebody losing their mind to dementia. But because it's
Yeah.
like a real problem that can happen, I kind of watched that like a horror
scary,
film.
yeah.
Of just kind of going, this is really scary. What happens if this happened to me? Oh my god, and it genuinely did
Yeah.
creep me out, as well as being a really good film. But does
But
that
would
mean
that mean it's a
that's
horror
a horror
film?
film?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That wouldn't. I still don't think anyone
it
would
feels
describe
like-
that as a horror.
Exactly, but it does creep you out.
it's a funny one, isn't it?
It is. It's really funny. So
I mean, it seems to me that what people would generally describe as horrors
Oh.
are people smashing the table up. You kind of get two different types of horror film, which is kind of like the serial killers coming after me, or the monster, the ghost or something is coming after us.
Yeah, there's obviously supernatural elements that
yeah,
tend to make a horror film, but then they don't
Yeah.
have to be horror
Yeah,
films.
but they don't have to be. It doesn't have to be supernatural. It could
Yeah,
just be
could just
someone
be a
with a
serial
knife.
killer.
yeah.
That could
Yeah.
be.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Because when you think of anything that is scary, like Still Alice, I guess, but that isn't a horror film, but is still pretty scary.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing about what's it called? What's the one with Jason in it? What series is it?
No, it's Halloween, no?
Friday the 13th.
Friday
Friday
13th.
13th.
Yeah, Halloween is Michael Myers.
Yeah,
But as you know, Halloween as well, because Halloween, that's Michael Myers is just in the first one. He is just a
A guy.
crazy person with
Yeah.
a knife.
Hmm.
He's not. He doesn't have any supernatural powers. In the first Friday the 13th, the killer isn't actually Jason, the child who drowned when the camp
Yeah,
people
yeah,
were
yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
It's actually Jason's mother who lost her son because of these things, is taking revenge on.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Too late for that now. How old is Friday the 13th?
Pretty old.
How many? But who was that? Who did that one? Because was that John Carpenter as well? Or was that somebody else? Because I
Yeah,
remember
it was
reading
somebody
something that the original director said. I was really annoyed because what they did was they then, for every other Friday the 13th film, the killer is this kind of Jason who's come back from the dead.
Yeah.
Whereas
Sean
in my
S.
one,
Cunningham.
yeah. Whereas in the original one, it was a mother going crazy and taking revenge.
It wasn't
Yeah.
somebody coming back from the dead. It was
Exactly,
something that
yeah.
could genuinely happen.
It,
Yeah, they
it wasn't
lost the
supernatural at
message.
all. It was just
So a horror film doesn't have to be scary necessarily to be a horror.
yeah.
Do you know what
Yeah.
is scary though that I watched when I was thinking about the questions you asked us before this podcast of like what was the thing that really scared you when you were a kid?
Yeah.
The scariest thing that I remember when I was a kid that I literally could not sleep for weeks afterwards was Watership Down.
Yes.
Yeah.
That
yeah,
was
that's
eff-
true.
like when the Colonel Rabbit goes in and attacks all of them, and there's just blood and
Yeah,
rabbit bits
yeah.
everywhere. That
sticks with
truly,
you.
I
Yeah.
could not close my eyes when I was a kid without seeing like just a vision of this rabbit's face with blood everywhere. And
Yeah.
that
It's not very often you see an
absolute
evil rabbit.
an evil rabbit. I know it sounds like an oxymoron.
I think, yeah, it's one of those things. I think the scene with the witches. I remember the scene in the witches where she peeled her face off. It
Yeah.
Oh,
freaked me
yeah.
out completely. I used to hide behind the sofa with that one. But I have a really weird phobia, don't I? A really weird fear.
You seem to have quite a few.
I have a few
phobias.
weird fears.
This is worth mentioning, actually. Yeah.
So I have a fear. So I have a fear of Slimer from Ghostbusters.
There we are. Because Ghostbusters again, in many ways, a horror film,
Kind of,
Yeah.
but primarily a comedy.
So obviously he is supposed to be friendly, isn't he? But I remember watching the first Ghostbusters film when I was younger and absolutely freaking out the first time I saw Slimer, because I think it's the build-up of tension before you first see him. And then I saw him and was absolutely shaking. And I can't look at him.
Is that scene improvised by?
Which?
Where he meets
his
Slimer?
first appearance.
Yeah, I have a feeling in the back of my head that it's at least partially improvised. Yeah, but Slimer is supposedly the ghost of John Belushi, isn't he?
Yeah, which I it's just I can't even look at it.
He can freak you out completely.
It really, really, really freaks me out, and I think it's one of those things where kids' parties were a nightmare for me growing up because it was either Slimer or clowns. Children's parties were just horrible for me. But I think I seen the new film because my sister saw it first, and I asked her to find out when Slimer was in it, just to kind of give me
so you can
a
put the popcorn
timeline
thing over your head.
So I could kind of hide. And my sister did. In all fairness, she told me when Slimer turned up in the film, which was really nice. But she forgot to tell me a really important factor.
When he goes?
No, that there's 2 Slimers in the film. Spoiler: there's 2 Slimers in the new Ghostbusters film, which I didn't know about. So double the fear. Thanks for not telling me, Sarah. So yeah.